Yo, what's going on, everybody? Dwayne Pedals here. Welcome to the channel. In today's interview series, I connected with Evan Green. Evan is a cyclist, photographer, snowboarder, climber who's gone on some eye-opening adventures. We had an awesome conversation exploring what really inspires him and drives him to continue doing what he loves to do, even through fear and discomfort.
Yeah, being part of the Full Circle Everest expedition was really a pivotal moment, I would say, in my life. Just being able to climb Everest as part of the first all-black expedition was really life-changing.
So without further ado, I'm gonna let Evan take you on his journey. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the video. Welcome back to the channel, everyone. We have a very special guest today. His name is Evan Green. Evan is a unique individual who I've been following for a long time. He's a cyclist, photographer, snowboarder, climber, all-around outdoorsman. I don't think I can eloquently describe him in words, but if there's like one thing I can say, I would say that he is the ultimate adventurer. So Evan, welcome. It's a pleasure to have you, man.
Thanks, Dwayne. Yeah, thanks for having me. And yeah, I've been watching your YouTube channel and kind of Instagram content for a while too. So you're also inspiration to me as well. So yeah, I'm really honored to have you on.
Awesome, man. I really appreciate that. For sure, for sure. Yeah, I'd like to, I mean, you've done a lot of awesome stuff. I really wanted to kick it off with you just sharing more about your story. And so tell me a little bit about how you got into all the things that you're doing. Like, I know you do you've done some bike packing, snowboarding, and you're a photographer, filmmaker. So tell me a little about your story.
Yeah, I grew up in Dallas, Texas area, and my dad worked for JCPenney there and kind of did a lot of multimedia stuff. So we always had cameras and kind of video editing software to play around with. So I got into just making little short Lego movies and stop motion animation when I was a kid. So that's kind of how I first got into the world of creating things, I would say, and kind of expressing myself through just like the camera medium. And I was also in Boy Scouts when I was growing up, and my parents would take me camping. So that's kind of how I got into the outdoors, and then went on to become an Eagle Scout, and just really loved the kind of monthly camping trips that we would go on, and be able to spend time out, just kind of roaming around in the woods and having fun, and experiencing nature. So that's kind of my background on how I got into the creative side and kind of the outdoors in general.
So, Evan, what inspires you to keep pedaling and, whether it's going on a bikepacking trip, maybe overnight camping trip locally, doing some climbing, or, just capturing moments out there while you're doing all that stuff?
Yeah, what inspires me is mostly the exploring aspect of it. I just love to see new places and find out what's out there and kind of pore over the maps and then kind of see if my homework pays off or, just seeing those areas firsthand is really what I love as part of the adventure. And then in terms of, capturing photos or videos, it's really kind of a documentary side of things that I like a lot of just, I wasn't really into it for a while, and then I kind of was looking or thinking back on these memories I had, but there was no photos or evidence of it or anything like that. And so I was like, oh, I really want to get into photography so I can kind of at least have these memories, saved and captured in some form. And so that I kind of bought a digital camera at that point and just went down the rabbit hole and got really into it just to kind of document and focused on my kind of outdoor pursuits.
Nice. Yeah, that's awesome. And a lot of that took place in out west for the most part where you live.
Yeah, for the most part, I think I got a digital camera in 2014 or something like that. It was one of the Sony mirrorless ones that I just kind of stumbled into that world and kind of started watching a bunch of YouTube videos on technique and gear, and yeah, ended up as a professional photographer a few years later.
That's awesome. That's so cool. Living out your dreams, man. That's cool.
Yeah.
Right on, right on. What's one place you'd say you want to travel to and why? Like whether it's for biking, shooting photography, any other kind of outdoor sports.
Yeah, that's a good question. There's so many places on my list. I mean, Japan has always been one that I've been really interested in, just from the camera culture aspect of it, with Canon and Sony and Nikon, like all these big brands there, and then just
Totally.
being kind of a lot different than the US. And there's also awesome snowboarding there and the snowfall in some of the places, and just being able to explore there and being in a totally different world, kind of from the US. I feel like has always been high on my list. And then at the same time, yeah, I don't know. I also want to do a trip to Jamaica just because I have some family roots there. And so I've always just wanted to go there and kind of see it firsthand and, um, you know, see what's going on really
Yeah,
and
yeah.
experience that culture as well.
Nice. Yeah, right on. Yeah, that's cool, man. I mean, it's always nice to like retrace your roots. I have like some family out in Dominica, the Midwest, the West Indies, and always wanted to go there too and experience like my roots and everything. So yeah, they say there's no place like home too. So it'd be nice to do that one day. So that sounds cool. I want to touch on like fear because I feel like when it comes to like these big adventures that we set sights on, and whether it be a bike packing trip, you have to go. Maybe you want to go camping. I feel like sometimes those could become hurdles that sort of get in the way or can like prevent you from taking on that trip, or that experience. Like, can you speak to that? Like, how do you overcome fear when it comes to setting sights on an adventure?
Yeah, for a while I was really interested in bike packing, and but I didn't ever actually go bike packing. I knew some, like, I was a pretty avid mountain biker. I'd done a lot of backpacking, so I knew it was in my skill set. But for some reason, just I was kind of afraid to like actually get out and do a bike packing trip. And I had been like kind of like building bags, and I kept saying to myself like, "Oh, I just need like a few more pieces for my bike packing kit." And I felt like I was going to use that as an excuse that was holding me back, and I was just kind of unsure about it. And I mean, to be honest, bikepacking is it is quite dangerous and it is pretty intimidating just because you can get yourself out so far and into such a remote place, and then you have a flat tire or some mechanical issue, and there's no self service. So it is kind of justified to be really well prepared. But then again, your first trip doesn't have to be like a huge 200-mile off road, like into the most remote area, um, kind of thing. So,
Yeah.
um, but yeah, I eventually got invited on a trip to ride the Colorado Trail, and that ended up being my first bike packing trip. So it was quite an
Wow.
undertaking of one of the hardest trails as my first trip. But it ended up, I just absolutely loved it, and it just gave me the confidence to go on and do other trips from there. And then yeah, I do remember also on that trip it was maybe the second night, and we were sleeping camped out, and there was this really weird sound I heard at 4 in the morning, and everyone else kind of like bolted up in there. It was with a small group, so that was really nice. But everyone kind of like sat up and was like, "What is that?" And was like, "What's that sound?" And one person knew what it was, and it was a mountain lion call that was not too far from us.
No.
And so that was also pretty scary and intimidating, but it just kind of echoed off and eventually went away, and we were fine. But yeah, that was really
Yeah.
unnerving as well.
Ooh, yeah, that sounds like really scary. I've never encountered a wild animal on a bike packing trip before, let alone a mountain lion. I would
Yeah,
definitely would stay in the tent when something like that happens.
yeah,
Stay low and just chill out until it passes. But that's cool. Colorado Trail, that's a pretty big feat, Like how long did that take you to complete?
it was 2 weeks, I think. Yeah, maybe 13 days total on the trail.
Nice. Nice. Right on, man.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's good stuff. Yeah, like if it seems like you've been doing a lot of climbing and obviously photography and filmmaking and everything for quite some time, and cycling and stuff like that. So like knowing what you know now and looking back, what's one thing you would tell your younger self like related to your experiences?
yeah. I would say just to start small, kind of like, at least in my head too, I always try to go for these big adventures out the gate, or I have this like grand idea in my head. But sometimes, your first bikepacking trip can just be like a little 8 mile loop in an area that's nearby you just to test your gear and see how your system works out and how you like spending the night out and packing, getting used to packing everything up and just kind of starting small from there and then kind of going out. And that also works great for, climbing and just starting on a smaller, something easy and within your skill level, and then kind of building up from there versus kind of either scaring yourself or hurting yourself and like kind of not losing that passion sometimes for the outdoors.
For sure, for sure. Yeah, I like that. Thanks for sharing that. For sure. I want to touch on this film I saw that you created. It's called it, "See See Us Heal," and can you tell me a little bit about that? It seems like it looks like it was in Crested Butte. Maybe you can share more about like that whole experience and everything, and how
Yeah,
that kind of came together.
it was a short film that I filmed in Crested Butte with my friends Jalen and Eric, and yeah, Jalen's one of the Black Foxes and on the giant cycling team. So yeah, he was the mastermind behind that whole project, and really put the location and a lot of the ideas of the film together. And I was doing a lot of the video and the editing work. But yeah, we were just kind of out on I think it was a just 2 night, yeah, 3 day bikepacking trip in Crested Butte, which was a lot of fun because they're really good friends, and we got to just like share our stories and bike and film. Um, and then we, yeah, created that video, which, yeah, I wasn't really quite sure how it was going to be received, but a lot of people really seem to have enjoyed it and connected with it. So it's been really special. And it was a really fun project to work on.
For sure. Yeah. Was that shot during like a couple of years ago, or is that more like a recent?
I think that was, yeah, it was like maybe 2 or 3 years ago. So pretty recent,
Got it.
just
Got
this
it.
summer. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, man. That was a good film. I really enjoyed that. I felt like that was I resonated with that one too because I feel like there was a time back during the pandemic when a lot of people, including myself, were going through some hardships, and during that whole situation, and yeah, that was just a good watch. So yeah, I'm
Thanks.
glad it was
Yeah.
like well received.
Yeah, we wanted to add in kind of the standard bikepacking part, but then go into more of some social issues and just kind of what it's like to be a person of color and some of those difficulties and things like that. And of course, the Black Lives Matter movement was still pretty fresh at that time and things like that. So yeah, there was a little bit. We tried to be more than just kind of a bikepacking trip recap, big film.
For sure. Yeah. Nice. Evan, what do you love most about like what you do in terms of bike packing or cycling in general? It doesn't have to be bike packing, even, the other things that you love, like climbing or shooting photography and filming.
It's a good question. I I guess I do. I like kind of talked about before. I like that kind of planning part of it, of just kind of looking over the maps and kind of getting organized and like kind of the pre the lead up into everything and kind of putting all those pieces together. I kind of like that puzzle part of it, especially with climbing too. Like you're looking at the weather and you're looking at the conditions and what to bring and how far you think you can make it. So yeah, just all the variables and kind of putting them all together. And so then, you don't always succeed, but when you do, it is even more rewarding because you kind of have made this recipe that works out at the end.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Or even too, like I find like when you're out there and like, maybe you forget something, you sort of have to think on your feet and try to figure out like where you can find, whether you can find like an extra tube, maybe you get a flat tire, how are you going to fix it? Like
Hmm.
those little things that, you plan in advance that always, something could go south. You sort of have to improvise and things like that. So right on. You've done some pretty cool like adventures, and like I'm just curious, like what would you say is like the most scariest or craziest one that you've experienced?
Um, yeah, being part of the Full Circle Everest expedition was really a pivotal moment, I would say, in my life. Just, being able to climb Everest as part of the first all-black expedition was really life-changing. And of course, being on such a big mountain, there was a lot of scary moments on Everest. I know we were coming down from the summit, and like a cornice fell off of Everest, and we were holding on since
Oh,
it's pretty crowded at the top. So we were kind of using some of the older lines and like letting the people that were still climbing up use the lines that had been set this year. And the cornice started to drag down the old lines since they weren't supposed to be really used anymore. We were just kind of using them as a handhold, and all of a sudden the rope started zipping through my hands, and I realized, oh, we gotta get let go of this thing, or it's gonna pull us right off the mountain from the summit of Everest. So that was definitely scary, and just yeah, it was starting to warm up, and you knew the mountain conditions were changing. So uh, a wake up call for sure.
wow. How long were you out there for that adventure?
The full expedition was a little under 2 months, so
Wow, that's really cool. That must have been. I mean, it sounds like it was an impactful experience. For sure.
yeah.
Nice, nice, man. Any tips you would share for going on these types of adventures, or like whether it's through bike packing or, you know, climbing, camping, all around, like going on a trail by yourself in the outdoors. Like any tips you can share for those who are like sort of new to the sport, or if they want to take it on for themselves.
Yeah, I guess just kind of with my Boy Scout background, I know one of the big things is always just to be prepared. So I'm usually that person that's carrying too much stuff. Like I have the first aid kit and the repair stuff and like the extra socks and like the extra pair of gloves and the camera stuff. So I'm usually like a little bit overloaded. But it usually ends up paying off, or I just like that peace of mind of knowing that, maybe you didn't get a flat tire this time, but it's still worth carrying that spare tube with you on those rides because, one of these days you're going to need it. And yeah, you are pretty self-reliant a lot of times if you go a little bit more off the usual path. And so it just is really beneficial to be prepared and be have that knowledge. And that's kind of what I love about YouTube is that you can learn things yourself. Like you can kind of watch REI's how to change a tire video and stuff and practice it yourself and then kind of get prepared without, and maybe 10, 20 years ago, you'd have to get a library book or there was really not that many resources on it that was that helpful and you'd have to, find someone. But now with the internet, I feel really blessed to be able to learn different skills and incorporate them into the outdoors.
Yeah, I love that, man. It's amazing how far we've come, And I'm guilty as charged for bringing the whole entire kitchen sink with me on a bike tour. I mean, I'm the guy who carries the extra tire in the back, so I get that. And yeah, I mean, YouTube and there's so much information out there that could help someone, sort of learn the ropes without any guidance from like, one-on-one in person. So that's really cool. Yeah, man. Like, I I think about this question myself, and I like to share it, like, and ask you, like, what do you want to be remembered by? Whether you want to relate that to your personal life, the things that you do, professionally, and the things that you care about. What would you say to that? And I know that's maybe sounds like a little loaded question, but yeah, I'm just curious.
Yeah, I've always just tried to be supportive of it, especially in the outdoor industry. It's not the most diverse space, so I've always been trying to promote as much diversity as possible and kind of uplift a lot of the BIPOC communities that are found within the outdoor community. So that's something that I do try to strive for in my work and would like to be remembered by, and just being a kind, good-hearted person in general is really all I could ask for. Um, so yeah, I
Awesome.
guess that's my take.
Nice. Yeah, man, that sounds good, man. I love it. Evan, it was awesome to hear you share your experiences and taking us on a journey with you. So I appreciate you and having you come here. 100% like gratitude for you coming out and sharing. So I appreciate that, brother.
Yeah, thanks for having me, and thanks you for uploading all your YouTube content and stuff too. I mean, I love to live vicariously through everyone too on their rides, especially now that I'm a dad and like can't really get out as much with a toddler. I kind of just like watch different trail rides and people exploring different places on their bike and their GoPros and everything. So, thank you.
For sure, for sure. Where can everyone find you? Whether it's social or website.
Yeah, I'm on Instagram at the Green Evan, and my website's greenevan.com.
Awesome. Right on. All right, Evan. It was awesome chatting with you.
Yep, thanks. Good talking to you.